Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Words of Heart. In today's episode, I have the privilege of speaking with Lexy Davis. She is the host of the Heart Snuggles podcast. Thank you for joining me today, Lexy.
I'm so happy to be here. I feel so special and so nice that we have heart-minded businesses.
Absolutely. Speaking of heart-minded, if you could tell my listeners a bit about your podcast and what inspired it, that would be great.
Yeah, so I am a self-discovery coach and yoga instructor and human connector. So I just love bringing people together, and I've healed myself through so much via podcasts, and they've helped me with so many different parts of my life that I felt so connected to it. I never saw myself behind the mic. And then over the years, I was just like, you know what? I actually feel like I have a lot to share, and I love like giving people the opportunity to share their voice and to share their passions. And so I just wanted to create like a safe platform for people to connect to their hearts and hear real stories from real people and just get their heart snuggled. And then for my people that I bring on, a lot of them aren't podcasters. So it's the first time they've podcasted, and it's really beautiful to have them share their message to when they usually wouldn't. So it's a great opportunity to help like both sides of the spectrum. And yeah, so it's just a positive little place for authentic conversations. And I'm posting one every day, which is a challenge, but I'm excited for it.
Awesome. And I truly admire your overall vision and authenticity and genuine caring spirit. That's basically what my podcast embodies as well. Literally speaking from the heart and giving everybody the opportunity to share their story. Because I feel people aren't accepting of everyone in some extent, or they judge, or they could care less about that person. And I think just with your podcast as well, I like my podcast to be a safe forum of comfort and acceptance, because there's nothing wrong with you. Absolutely nothing wrong with you. You are loved, you are cared about, and your life does have a purpose. So
it's so beautiful, and it's a great thing to remind people, because we're so often told the opposite. We're told we need to do more, be this, be that, like not accept this. And so to have spaces where people can just be free to be themselves is like a rare thing nowadays, and such a treasure.
Absolutely. So there was an episode you did, Words of Affirmation, which I absolutely loved the episode. I think it was like the first episode I've heard thus far. I was hoping perhaps you could share some of those words with my audience a bit, if you remember, that is. I know you release episodes every single day.
Yeah, I'll try to think of what they were. I've been doing a lot of work with learning how to feel safe in my body, and because this is my home that I'm always in, and that wasn't a place that I felt comfortable in for most of my life, and I was really disconnected from my body. And so I've been learning how to create a safe environment within, and I found that affirmations really helped me. And so I did a little episode with some positive affirmations, just to remind people, like to remind yourself of words that you'd want to hear from someone else, because so often I was waiting for other people to tell me these things, and I was like, wait, I can actually just tell myself these things. And that was so empowering to give that back to myself. So some of the ones I said were, or I can just, if you're listening right now, I offer you to place a hand on your heart. And if you can, close your eyes, or if you're driving, please do not close your eyes. And just take a few breaths into your heart center. Just connecting with this beautiful place in your body. And every breath you take, just feel yourself soften a little bit more. And then I'll say these affirmations. I'll give you space after each to repeat it in your mind. So, I am enough even on my worst days. I continue to trust even when nothing makes sense. There are no requirements for me to be loved and supported. Everything I need will always be provided in the perfect order. I am whole as I am. I am safe in my body. I am meant to be here. I embody perseverance. I am worthy of love just as I am. And now just sitting with these words and noticing how your body feels, how it reacts to hearing these things. And it's okay if it feels uncomfortable or different or weird, or maybe it feels really good and nourishing and comforting. Whatever your experience is, just welcoming it. And then when you're ready, you can remove your hands and open your eyes if you close them.
Oh, that was great. And I'm so glad we were able to do that just now, because that just shows your heart and your character, and just I absolutely love that. And it also helps with my podcast as well, because it's all about the heart and speaking from it, because our heart is such a precious, precious tool, and it affects every single component of who we are.
Yeah, I agree. It's such a beautiful place. And I just feel like a lot of us aren't living in our hearts. We're not connected to them. And it's like, if we just tap into our hearts, the world would be such a more beautiful place.
Absolutely. So considering I don't know what just happened. Maybe that was our hearts saying that we need to speed this up or something. I don't know what on earth that was. But what I was gonna say was, considering the season we're in and with the pandemic and how unfortunate it is, how have you been affected mentally, physically, and how has your heart been with everything that's going on right now?
Yeah, so when it first started, I actually just broke up with my boyfriend, and that was my first partner as well. And so that was really hard for me because any breakup is hard, but it was my first one, so I was experiencing it, and then lockdown started, and I'm an introverted extrovert, so I like my alone time, but I really like to be around other people. And so it was just like a whole like, whew, I just felt so alone, like so many emotions coming up, and it was really overwhelming. And luckily I was living with one of my really good girlfriends, and so she helped me through a lot of it, but it was just intense. And then lots of fear, like being surrounded by so much fear was really hard, and the unknown. But I actually ended up running like a group of online group workshop for like 19 days that was like so beautiful. It was helpful for me and helpful for everyone else, and I just immediately like created like a safe little community to connect with during this time, so that we had support and had each other's backs. And that made me feel less alone and made me feel really good to just to like help each other out in this time. And it was all online, and so that was good, and that kind of like set up the foundation. So I felt pretty strong, and then I started like really just diving inwards, and I was like, what have I been ignoring? Like, what have I not been addressing in my life? Like, because I had no choice but to be with myself. And so I used it as just a really great opportunity to dive within and to address the things that I hadn't been addressing, and to do the work that I've been needing to do. And I did a lot of like inner child work, a lot of trauma work, a lot of journaling, breath work, and just things that I needed to do that I've been avoiding doing. And I ended up making my, like, I improved my health a lot too by eating better. And so I kind of with the isolation, I just took that time to go inward and do the things that I had been avoiding. And I created community online for myself and for others, because community is so important to me, and that's where I've healed the most. And then I just supported a lot of friends that were in really difficult situations or that got COVID. A lot of my friends had got it. And so I just tried to be the best support I could during that time. And I lived in a place that was surrounded. I was in Washington and I was surrounded by trees. So every day I would take myself out on a walk and connect with nature, which really helped me. So I'd actually say my COVID experience was like, I made the most of it for myself, even though it was like making the most of it was like not easy. It was not fun stuff that I was doing, but it was stuff that I needed to do. And I really learned how to like truly feel my emotions and feel all the hard stuff. And yeah, I just did a bunch of inner work, and I'm still doing it. We're still pretty much in lockdown, but that's kind of what my COVID experience was like.
Well, I'm glad you shared that with me, and I can't imagine having to break up with someone. Actually, in a way, I kind of can, because I did end up meeting someone virtually in the midst of this pandemic, but our relationship didn't really last that long. So I kind of understand having a relationship in sort of near the pandemic spectrum. And the isolation component, but that sense of community, you found a group of individuals who could be supportive of you. And there's a young adult ministry here in Florida called My Local that I had the privilege of finally being a part of through Zoom and sessions. So they were that sense of community that I desperately needed during this time, and probably a very opportune time, because just to give you a little insight into me, I actually got diagnosed with diabetes at the start of the pandemic in January.
Yeah.
So any health change diagnosis of any kind during this time was all the more terrifying than probably the actual diagnosis, which is just as bad. But when you add in the virus that can potentially kill us, it makes things all the more scary and terrifying. So
That's so
when
hard.
Right. When he put into that into the mix for my personal self, personally, it was a lot to handle, but I took my particular situation as a blessing in disguise. I'm a really optimistic person. It's just who I am. I saw it as God's way of giving my life more purpose, because I don't know how much insight you have into diabetes or not. But I was basically on the brink of death before I got diagnosed. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be having this conversation with you right now with our hearts and minds, and just, I wouldn't be able to do this right now if I hadn't been diagnosed when I was. So I saw everything that I've experienced, even though it beforehand was the most depressive time of my life. There was a solution. There was a light at the end of the tunnel. My story was still being written. It wasn't finished yet. And basically, it's through my diagnosis and then God giving my life more purpose, calling me to be a warrior for change, is really what led to this podcast, pretty much. Any words or speaking from the heart components that I've ever done was literally through my poetry. So when you mentioned journaling, I can understand the whole words and the emotional meaning, and it just is like a breath of fresh air, and just it's like your anxiety leaves your body and is just on the page, and then it flies away.
Yes,
pretty much. So yeah, that's pretty much how it got started, and obviously the title was kind of a no-brainer from there. But yeah.
And would you ever write a poetry book?
It's interesting you mentioned that, because that is like a dream of mine, to have a poetry book or an actual book, possibly. There's many facets to my story, many parts of that story I've revealed on my podcast if you want to tune into that at a later time. But yes, I would definitely love to write a poetry book.
I think the world needs it.
Yes, the world needs it. Words of affirmation, awesome podcasters like ourselves, just spreading positivity to be a source of comfort, and just a big virtual hug to anyone who needs it.
Yeah, we all need more love in our lives. I don't think anyone would complain with that.
Well, I have my icebreaker question for you. Many of my guests enjoy this question. I'm sure you will too. So, if you could have any superpower that's not flying or teleporting or levitating your body, because that all requires some type of movement of travel to some degree, but I gotta take that away because many people pick teleporting and flying. Levitating, I've added recently because I don't want you to, I can just float on over to the next bus stop or something. No, that requires your body and that requires travel. So if you could have any superpower that's not flying, teleporting, or levitating your body, what would it be?
Okay, I have two. One is being able to speak every language in the world so that I could talk to everyone, because I think that's like, I love to travel and it's one of the hardest things when I don't speak their language. And like, we can obviously speak through body language, but I think being able to speak every language would be so cool. And there's so many words that are not in, like, the English language is so small compared to other languages. I feel like there's so many other words in other languages. So speaking every language, I think definitely one of them. And then a more like spiritual, or I don't know, one that isn't real either, would be being able to like sprinkle love dust everywhere, and like just that's literally what I like think of, like being a little fairy with sprinkling love dust.
That's so cute. And I don't think I've heard that answer at any point when I've asked this question, which makes it all the more special.
Oh,
I
yay.
love that. Just sprinkle love dust. I love that. Man, you're just knocking out my answer out of the park at this point. But
Sorry.
no, it's all good. My answer or power is not exactly a power yet, but I feel like it would be one in the future. Would be the power for this podcast, and perhaps your heart dust, love dust, in a way, would be the power for this podcast to be heard across other galaxies that have yet to be discovered. So they're not even on NASA's radar yet they're tuning in right now, listening to this awesome conversation.
Whoa, I believe it. I think it's possible.
Yes.
Ooh, that's a good one. That is good too.
It's not as good as love dust though.
They're different. No compare. They're just different. They're both great.
But they still share some positivity at the end of the day.
Yes.
We can keep speaking from our hearts content and snuggling with our hearts and speaking from our hearts, but we're at the end of this awesome conversation, unfortunately. Give us the one-on-one to my audience as to how they can find your podcast, where they can listen to it. Are you gonna do a podcast movie? Like, give us the inside scoop to how my audience can get in contact with you.
Yeah, amazing. So my podcast is Heart Snuggles, and I try to post episodes that are under 20 minutes and they're posted every day. So go check out Heart Snuggles. And I also do interviews with guests as well. And then my Instagram, I have a Heart Snuggles Instagram. And then my other coaching is Alive to Enjoy. And that's just more positivity and reminding you to find joy in your lives.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me today, Lexy. This was very random. Probably the most random episode I've ever done. But it was all the more special simply because it was random.
Yeah, amazing.
But seriously, thank you for joining me today. This was a real honor and an awesome conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. To all my listeners, stay healthy, stay safe. We love you. Heart snuggles and words of heart over here. We love you guys. And until next time. Bye.